So we're back again, and as a reminder, if you look down below the video, we got the description that has the index of this particular video, and then there's a link to the big index where I've collected all that stuff together. So if you want to know what we've been doing, or if you want to look at the descriptions before you go to the trouble watching the video, you can look through that first. So that's just something to remember every time you deal with this stuff. And I was trying to think about anything else immediate, and I guess not. So I'll turn it over to Terry.
Well, I'm working on my autonomous snow thrower, and the part I'm doing now is CADing up in OnShape how I am envisioning the snow thrower attachment being built and operating. And so I'm going to, if I can figure out how to do this, share my screen. This will be the snower blades. I don't have all of this done yet, but I can at least now animate this, which is kind of a neat thing to do, although I still don't have the belt hooked up right. But at least I have the two gears running in the ratio based on their teeth, and it turns the blade. Obviously, it'll be going much faster in real life, but this is good enough. And so I can see how I've got the motor and the shield and the scraper and the skid plates and all of that. But I'm going to start working on where I'm going to put the electronics, which will be on the back side here, and then I'll be putting a cover over all of that, and then making a mounting so that I can mount it on the actual robot in kind of a 3-point hitch from the tractor automation. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Al, do you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of things. First off, that's really cool, Terry. That's as someone who's messed around with Fusion 360, I can appreciate the learning curve that you've gone through on that. Let's see. Share. I'm going to press share, Terry, so it's going to stomp on yours.
No worries.
Let's see. Just a couple of posts in Slack that I wanted to go back. Oh, why are you launching? You shouldn't have to launch. I already have Slack running. I don't know. My slow internet connection. Get that out of the way. And it didn't come up to what I wanted it to come up to. Well, it didn't work out well at all. I'm gonna get there. Bear with me.
You can close that thread, exit off, and then scroll up and down, find out what you want, and hopefully they won't try to help you too much, because then you won't get anything done.
You were mentioning earlier somebody joined. I think it might have been this David Bronson. I saw that just recently.
Yeah, that was like a week ago or something that guy joined.
So I wanted to go back up to I'm in the process of switching from ROS 1 on my laptop, HP laptop, to ROS 2 on with on an RPi, and instead of a ESP32 based board, switch to the Teensy 4.1. So I'm in the process of trying to get MicroROS, well, to test MicroROS, and well, I'll just jump over to this. That's easier. This is a tutorial that ostensibly shows how to make all this work, and trying to install it on Jazzy natively, I've not been able to get this to build correctly. So I ended up going down the Docker path and using Foxy, and I was able to work through this and get this to work. Now, these steps where it talks about programming the Teensy and loading up, it shows Arduino 1.819. That didn't work for me at all after multiple attempts. So I actually used PlatformIO on a Windows machine, programmed the Teensy, and then plugged the Teensy in, physically disconnected it from the Windows 10 machine, bringing it over into the, plugging it into the RPi and getting it to go through these steps and ultimately work. And in the Slack post, I think the publisher is named differently, but the data did appear in Slack. So that's a little bit of progress that I had made in the last few days. And I have to say, for a number of reasons, partially I'm not anti-Docker, but I just don't see the purpose. If I can load this stuff up natively, I'd rather not have another layer of software in the middle. Although I do see the benefit of, if you're trying to share, an exact build with somebody else, it's super like that. But I tend to try to document how I install stuff. And so if somebody wanted to follow my steps, they probably could. I think I buried my stuff in Jeff's reply. Yeah, so that was my actual evidence of getting that to work. So I have to say, Jeff, after messing around with this now at least 2 weeks, I'm probably going to go down the path of just having serial UART communication back and forth, because this MicroROS just feels so heavy, and then I think it would also limit. Well, I haven't got it to work on Jazzy, got it to work on this Humble via Docker, so that's really where I was at. So I was interested. You'd mentioned it. You'd talked to some guys at Home Brew Robotics, so I was very interested to hear what they had to say. So that's about it for me, other than messing around with the RPi a little bit and monitoring the power usage, just to test it with an external or a non-standard power supply. But that's sort of neither here nor there. So I think
So you
that's
just
all I wanted
mentioned
to mention.
you just mentioned something about which versions you had it running on. What was that again?
Humble or Foxy, Ross Foxy.
So what was that about Humble? Did you get that to work or try it or?
On the Teensy, I believe. Oh, maybe Humble is out of the picture completely, because I think I've only got it to work with Ross Foxy.
Okay, so one of the questions that comes up is, say if you program your Teensy with the Foxy, is that the agent at that end, whatever it is, you program that board with the Foxy stuff, will it talk to either Humble or Jazzy on the ROS side? So I don't know if they've got anything in between there that says, no, those don't match, or if they're constantly changing the messages from version to version. A long time ago, they said if you're trying to hook two ROS computers together, you should be running the same ROS version on both of them, because we might be changing the message formats in between. I don't know if they ever did that, but they kept saying that was a problem. But kind of the feel I get of all this stuff, they might just do that to you at any moment on this stuff. And but if you could do that, you could program your Teensy with any version you want, and then because once you program it, it's just standalone, and then plug it into your ROS, whatever version of the the stuff at that end, the node at that end that talks to it, is if it doesn't care what the versions are, that would be another way around it. Because I got the stuff that runs on ROS, I got that to run under Jazzy without really a whole lot of problems, and no Docker in between there. But then when I tried to get the some newer stuff to run without Docker on the Raspberry, or on the Teensy, I could not make it work. And I'll just go ahead and say that right now, that I got to that point. I tried to compile it, got the whole thing loaded. I loaded the newest Arduino of 2.3.4, and then I loaded the newer Teensy install stuff for that, and went through all the steps and got down to the end, and everything looked like it was working right. I loaded up the demo and said go, and it came up and said, oh, I can't find the if I pulled it up, I could find that exact message. But anyway, it said it couldn't find something. Here,
Yeah,
I'll just,
I lived through those.
I actually, the first time around, I had one that said it couldn't find a compiler at all. And then the next one, the latest stuff I loaded up says, oh, I can't find. Let's see, I go to this screen. Let's see if this works. And then where's
Yeah, I've
my,
tried so many options. I get confused about which ones didn't work and which one did work. I think ultimately it was plain PlatformIO, no Arduino at all. And then I was able to manipulate where the libraries were installed to resolve the errors about not being able to find the right library. I think that's ultimately how I got the compile to compile cleanly.
well, but so the first time around, it said I just can't find the compilers. Well, that seems bad. That seems like a bad situation. Let's see. Let's go back. Unfortunately, I don't remember what this stuff was. And I thought, well, I had a weird mismatch of Arduino and Teensy and everything all in between. I was piecing it together. I thought, well, I just did something wrong there. So I was going back and try to load the newer stuff. And then eventually I got that Arduino 2.3.4 to run. I got all that loaded. And the first time I ran that one on, I guess the difference was I tried to run that and said I had a 3.2, and it came back and gave me this message I'm not going to be able to find here. I think it was buried in here. And since everything's in threads, it makes it really hard to find anything. So is this one here? It was coming up on the screen saying undefined reference to locale type pointer issue. When I pulled that up, I found somebody at MicroRos saying, I'm getting this error. And if you go follow this, let me just grab this.
Yeah, I saw that link. That looked really interesting.
And as a note to me, I'll put this into my chat if I can find my chat.
But then he was using another IDE I had not heard of personally.
At the one I found, maybe a different board or what?
That link,
Yeah.
the guy who was asking the question, he mentioned his development platform, and it was not, like STM Cube or Arduino or PlatformIO, so we're VS Code. It was yet another MCU. There you go, MCU Espresso IDE.
Oh, okay. I just assumed this was the Arduino stuff. But anyway, regardless of what he's using here, he said he can't get that to work. And then somebody from MicroROS came in and said, "Oh, well, you have to." He said your problem is that the pre-compiled library that you're using has to be built with the same compiler that you're using now. And so down here, somebody says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Here, check this, check this, check this." And then finally down here says, "Oh, what you do is just go recompile that." He says, "We use Docker to compile it. So run these steps." Is that it here? He says, "Run these steps." And he said a bunch of like Docker fetches or whatever and recompile it. He says, "Oh, that'll fix all your problems." Well, no, what it's going to do, that's going to recreate exactly what you got again. And that's not going to fix the problem. So I don't think they meant it to work any other way. So in order to do that part of it, you have to load the Docker to get their files, and then you can't, like, say I'm trying to do. I'm trying to run. I'm trying to run without Docker, but the pre-compiled library they created was created with their Docker, and for some reason those don't match or something is what the issue was. I thought, well, that kind of bites. That's not going to solve it. So I was thinking I could go back and look at how do you build the stuff from scratch without Docker, and I started digging through and just got put off on that. So the other thing I thought I'd try was here instead of a 3.2, I'll tell it I got a Teensy 4.1, and it came up with a different, but basically it came up with a few more errors, but it was eventually complaining about the same thing, saying it can't find that. So that's what I ran into on that. But as far as the part that compiles under ROS, I was able to go through that with Jazzy and build that whole thing and got that to work. And it according to what they were showing you should expect there, that was indeed, it looked like it should be working, but then I didn't have the small board to plug into it. And I don't see the exact thing in here that I was thinking of, where he said, "Oh, just go compile it and just do this," and it's just really easy. And I thought, yeah, it is really easy. But so the other thought I had was, if you really wanted to do this, you could go through and load your Docker image and go through all the steps, and then compile your board. Now you got a standalone board. So just keep your whole Docker build tree somewhere, so you can come back to it when you want to make one change, go through that whole thing. And again, once your board is programmed, then you don't have to worry about Docker anymore, because as I said, I got the ROS side of it to run without using Docker. So that might be a way around that. And see this guy right here, he was saying, "Here's my output," and then at the very end it says, where is it? It says, "Oh, undefined reference to these things." So it was doing the same thing. And the way the guy explained it, says, "Oh, well, yeah, it's going to do that because we used a different compiler to do the pre-compiled image that we gave you, and then so your stuff you're running now has to use the same one." That didn't make sense to me how to fix that. So anyway, that's how far I got on that. And um
Can I
and then
share for just a second?
yeah, I think I'm done trying to explain that. It's not doing anything. So go ahead.
Well, because I found the thread. So you mentioned Humble. Now this is purely to get a clean compile on the Teensy. I did bring down apparently the Humble version of this MicroRos Arduino file, and then in the PlatformIO build, I had to specify not only the board, but also where the source code was for this. And so it effectively recompiled that MicroROS library. And this did all of that without any Arduino stuff going on. And this was just my evidence of, hey, I got a clean compile. Which after a week of trying, that was quite a sense of accomplishment. And then
And
that was just
was that done with or without Docker when you did that?
no Docker. This is on a Windows machine
Okay.
with just PlatformIO running. And I thought if I had to really wanted to use MicroRos, I would create the hex file on this Windows machine and move it over to the Teensy. But this was the header that the example publisher had, and so that was my painful but successful attempt at getting a clean compile. And I did notice, you had asked earlier, I did notice that it's using Humble.
Couple of things there. On the Home Brew Robotics thing, they were talking about this, and somebody said, or no, this was actually on the MicroROS website. It says, well, we don't really support PlatformIO anymore because they're supporting it natively themselves. So apparently, if you can find the right stuff on PlatformIO, they'll say, yep, here it is. Just plug it in and it works. But I didn't go track that down. I just remember that statement being made, and that I think that was on the MicroROS website where they're talking about, what do they support? And they said, well, we don't support it anymore because they took it over and they're doing it themselves for their stuff. So that might be a good pointer also.
Yeah, well, just for emphasis, what a pain in the what to get this INI file figured out. Because ultimately it took recompiling that daggone code, and then I was also fighting with what board it wanted to see there. But anyway, that's why I posted it there for a little bit of posterity.
That's good because we'll have it documented here. So maybe somebody will come back to that. The other thing I noticed was, speaking of, you saying, well, use PlatformIO or Arduino. I'm wondering if you could build this whole thing without using anything like that. And I couldn't really tell by the MicroROS website if that's the deal, but it seems like the only example for doing this Arduino is that one that says do Teensy on Arduino using Foxy Docker, and it doesn't seem to be mentioned anywhere else. And they're talking about all these other boards, and I'm just wondering if basically Arduino or PlatformIO are just simply getting in the way, because you could probably specify it, because they're doing cross compile internal anyway, because when they run their Docker compiler to do the stuff for the Teensy or the Arduino plugin. Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with Arduino. They just specify a compiler that will run under, right on your main Linux system. They just have a compiler that'll do the 32-bit ARM stuff, and they just build it there, and then create that output file. So it could be you don't need any of that stuff in between if you just know if you know enough about your make files and all that stuff. You can just simply say, I want to build this, and we're going to include that.
Yeah, I think you could be right. But in retrospect, I couldn't get this. I mean, I followed these commands. Now, maybe I don't remember whether I was building this on a native machine or whether this was meant to keep building it under this Docker machine. But I couldn't get this. This just didn't work. Just straight up didn't work for me. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if they wanted you to run those commands inside of the Docker container, which I'm not sure I did.
I got it to compile without the Docker stuff, but then, as I said, then I ran that problem at the end. It says, oh, by the way, we gave you something to make it easy that's going to prevent you from working, is basically what they're saying on that. And I don't know you know, once you're doing the stuff yourself, it might be you just bypass all that crap because you're gonna have to go back and recompile the stuff anyway. So maybe if you figure out how to do it without Docker to compile it, then that'll work.
Yeah.
Or the previous thing I said, just build, you know, your Docker, your whole development system somewhere and save that. And then every time you make a change, you can go in, change your code and compile it with that whole under the Docker stuff and load your board. Once it's on the board, then the Docker's out of the picture then. Until you need to do it next time, you have to load it up and do that whole thing again. But
I think I'm just going to go with UARTs.
and it was surprisingly, you know, on the Home Brew Robotics, most people are saying, yeah, that's just what I do. And especially that Sergei that's got the big zero turn lawnmower. He says that's what he does. And I know Camp PV was saying, well, he doesn't use Micro-ROS because he's got one of the little vacuum cleaner robots. It's the I Create 4 or something. And apparently it's got a native way to talk to ROS too. So they've written their own drivers. So you just plug the two together and it knows how to talk. So I don't know if it's based on Micro-ROS or if they just simply made up their own stuff. And then the Michael Wimble is the one that had he builds fairly elaborate robots with lots of computers on them. And he said that he's running his main computer is it's like a mini ITX motherboard. And then his lower one is a Teensy 4.1. And it says he fought with MicroRos and got it to work. And he gave me some links out to his stuff. So he's got some stuff telling you how to build, and he wasn't really ready to say that this is exactly what you want. It's just, you know, basically some of his notes that he'd made, and then he gave me a link to his full GitHub, and he's saying, well, if you dig through that, it might tell you what you need to know there. So let's see.
Well, that's where I'm at.
So if I go here, take this, copy, and then where did my chat go? Chat here. Oh, here was I didn't post this one. That was the that's the thing about the compilers. You got to do it one way or the other. And in this link is the that's just a something out on the Home Brew Robotics list. And this is where the guy was saying, let's see, I'm not sharing, am I?
No.
So if I say this, make this bigger. I say, make this bigger. There we go. And he was saying, it was a great discussion we had on the meeting last night. And he was talking about what he would go with, or he says he didn't know why you use a Teensy, but to me, it's fairly obvious why you want to use a Teensy. Then down here,
What was he promoting?
uh,
If not a Teensy, what would he promote?
no, he says right here, he says, well, he'd use an ESP32, but it's got low pin count, or he'd use a Pico, but it's got weak support. And keep in mind, he's not using it at all. So he was just, you know, as a just looking in on the whole thing. He's saying that's what he'd do. And he just looked up some stuff here that just random links that he searched up and pasted there. And then I think down at the bottom, he's saying he just went ahead and did it. So so that came up. And then let's see, I was gonna look at the other. Now I can't get to my tabs. Okay, I'll move this over here. And let's see. So then Camp PV also pointed out that the Liner Robotics stuff is using Micro-ROS. So I'll copy that one and paste it, if nothing else, just to remind me later. So there's I think that is the one. But if you dig through here, you know, down at the bottom, they've got all this stuff. And somewhere down here, let's just do this. Let's say find micro.
By the way, you've got a screen on the video that's not shared. You got a gray box there on the lower left.
Lower left or lower right? I think it's my clock, so it is.
Lower left.
Well,
Yep, right there. Where your cursor was, not now. Still
right
there.
here.
Nope, the other side.
This one?
That about a third of your window is there. You go. Whatever that was.
Well, that's weird. That was my chat window. It was just partially under the next screen, and it shouldn't have been showing up at all. But so where was I here? Let's go back to here. Okay, so micro. Is it a dash? MicroROS. Nope, apparently not. Micro. No. Update MicroROS bash. So anyway, how come this won't scroll? Oh, we're at the bottom. So anyway, he's got references to MicroROS in here, and I don't know. What is this? So I don't know if he specifically talks about it, you know, how to configure it and how to run it and everything. But anyway, that's somebody that's actually using it, and he's running a Teensy 3.2, and I think he might be using a Raspberry Pi for his main computer. And I don't remember what versions of anything they're running, but so anyway, that was something that Camp pointed out, that they are using MicroROS. So that's a reference. And this one is this is Michael Wimble's stuff, and he's apparently writing a book, and this is like one of his chapters or something out of his book. And building custom MicroROS for Teensy 4.1. So that this might be very useful. Oh, I looked at this stuff. I have no idea what this stuff is, so I don't know. I don't. I guess you'd have to know what you're doing to figure this out. But anyway, so here's some stuff down here, and he gives some steps. So this might be good to have, good to read through. And let's see, what's that one here again? And then the next one is, this is more his stuff. This might have been what he said. These are just notes to himself. And this kind of maybe not, it's not the same as what we just saw. So that's another thing. He would he wasn't prepared for this. He was just pulling this off the top of his head. They said, here's some things you might want to look at. So I'll make note to that one. And then this one is his this is his GitHub. So yeah, is it at the top here? How do we know if it's the top? Main files, TM5, TC monitor. So if we go all the way back to here, this is his robot. I don't know if he's got any pictures of it here, but he's got this. It's got, you know, like 26 microcontrollers and that one big computer. And I don't know how many he actually has, but it seems like an awful lot. So I'll just again put that here so it's in the right spot. So here's his main GitHub, and he said, look under what's it, something monitor, under Teensy monitor. He kept saying, look under Teensy monitor. I couldn't see it. Well, there's a box right here somewhere that said show more files or show all files. And I clicked on that. And then I can get down to where it says Teensy monitor. So we go to that one. And I think on this one, for some reason he said go to the TM5, and I think that was his motor controller or something. Maybe it's his motor controller module that's running. Yeah, this I think is the one. It's on his Teensy 4.1, all this stuff, because he's talking about his all these different sensors and stuff's on here. Well, I want to see the motor. The RoboClaw is his motor controller that he's using. So anyway, that apparently will take you through the whole thing. So this is a full functioning system here. And if you got time to dig through, and maybe if we go back, what do we got at the bottom down here for? I was trying to see if he had a README file that would give a good. Let's back up one more. The main one. So he's got stuff here. So you can dig through here and see what it says. So this keep you busy for a while, I think, running this stuff. And I don't think he was running Docker to run any of his stuff. So he figured out how to do this stuff natively. And robot simulation. So running the simulation, he must have defined his own, built his own URDF file, so it looks like his robot. So anyway, that's more stuff. And this all came up on that discussion we had on Tuesday night. And what's this one? Sig Robotic can bring up. Oh, this is this I think is one by Sergei. Is either by Sergei or the other guy was Walter, not Walter. Let's see if I pull up the anyway, this is somebody that was on there posted this. Let me just pop this out here. And then let's see, how do I do that? If I go to files. And if I go to documents, Zoom, and go to Home Brew Robotics. Okay, there it is. If I say open that and then drag that over. Drag that over here. And I copied this my other computer and cleaned it up, but of course I don't have that right here. It was Marco is the other guy. So Marco Walther. And he's got a YouTube video here of his lawnmower. He's got a bunch of YouTube videos showing us stuff that he does. So I'll put that link there again to remind myself that that's what we're talking about. So that Sergei, I forgot what his last name is. He's got something here. He's got a big photo album that just goes on and on and on, showing all of his robots. And then he's got one he's talking about his PX4 autopilot. He was asking why use ROS and why not use autopilot, and says, well, I don't know anything about it. I think Al used it and went to ROS, and then pointing out that when somebody started ROS agriculture, the whole point was to use ROS on vehicles. So that's basically why that got chosen. And
by the way, you may have copied over a YouTube video link that you had from the last guy up like at time mark 20.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I was trying to copy that. And which again,
I
the
think you
stuff
did put it in it. You did put that one in the chat, I think, but you had a YouTube video that you mentioned and it's not there anymore. I think there used to be a YouTube video link right where you're highlighting now.
Somehow I screwed up my source file. Which anyway, the point is nobody will see what we're talking about right now because I'll transfer that to the description. But yeah, somehow I screwed up because the actual file in my computer here is wrong. So let's see if I can just close it. You want to save it and continue without saving. Close without saving. And then if I open it again, see if I distort it here. I'll just waste everybody's time. Okay, so there's the YouTube video and I haven't destroyed it yet. So apparently I copied it and pasted it back on top of itself, or copied the wrong thing on top of it. So copy that. Come over here.
It's just you and I, Terry, had to go.
Okay. So okay, now my YouTube's in the chat, and for you, when we're done, you can just save chat and you can get to this instead of waiting all day for me to get around to doing this stuff. So anyway, that's pretty well sums up the list of that stuff. And there are other things that came up. I was thinking I wrote a lot of notes down, but it turns out I didn't. But they did say on the 29th of this month, which is probably a Wednesday night at their monthly Home Brew Robotics meeting, Sergei is going to do a presentation on his robots. And I don't know if it's his big one or if it's little ones or just all of his robots in general, but and looking down the list here, I don't see any more things that really jump out at me that was on. This is the chat from the Zoom meeting we had. So as we're talking about, people would just randomly post stuff in here. And I was posting, I posted a link to our YouTube page for our YouTube meetings that we're doing right now. And people seemed interested in that. I think we've had 3 people subscribe since then. I don't know. Only one of them was from Home Brew. I only know one's from Home Brew Robotics because it was Sergei that did that. And then the last person that posted was actually from like Japan or somewhere, I think. So possibly 2 people from Home Brew Robotics subscribed, or maybe not. I don't. It if you're on YouTube and you say don't share my personal information, then it doesn't notify anybody when you subscribe. But if you don't do that, then it sends a message to the person that owns the group and says this person just subscribed. That's got a link back to their YouTube page, so you can go look at their stuff. But usually just the number increments, you don't know who it is or why they signed up or anything else. And what was this one? Oh, so this is back to our stuff. So we got 113 subscribers. Let's see if anybody else signed up in the meantime.
You're still recording, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also just rambling, by the way. And okay, so we got that. So I just wanted to see, let me think about this for a moment now and see if I can remember. Am I still sharing? Yes, I am. I'll stop sharing just to get my mind back here. So anyway, as I said on my stuff, I've compiled the stuff multiple ways. I did get the newest Arduino compiler to work, and there's the Arduino install stuff, or the Teensy install stuff that goes along with that. I found the version that goes with that, and everything worked great until I got up and said compile, and it says, oh, I can't find those. You have undefined references, and that's where somebody says, well, you got to recompile the stuff because they have to match. And I'm just thinking, can I get those to match? So I'll have to, if I pursue any further, I'll go look at that and see if I can figure that out. Another thing I noticed, if you dig through the MicroROS website, there's more pages than the one you found, because like the next page says, here's how you compile it under Humble. And then I realized, but I don't think it had anything to do with Arduino. So I don't know if they're doing it for just somebody else's board, or if that's why I started thinking, maybe you can compile this stuff without using Arduino or PlatformIO in between at all. You just simply, compile the pieces, and then it all does it on your big Linux computer, but it compiles it with the ARM32 compiler for the Teensy stuff. But I'm not sure if that's true or not. So that was a thought I had, and I don't know. I don't know if I'll pursue that anymore, but I may or may not.
Yeah, I went down that path briefly and realized I didn't have the skills to create the make file that was required, so just couldn't get far enough on that.
So let's see, do I have anything else to say about that? I think I'm pretty well talked out for the moment on that. There's probably lots of things I should say, but I can't think what they are right now. But it just
I'm
seems
good
like,
too.
they're, because that original tutorial you found, it says, here, click this link. And it didn't tell you what it was. It just had the word link, and it was highlighted. You click on it, and it just simply downloaded the executable to load Arduino. And I thought, well, if they tell you where to go, point you to a page where you can download what you want, that would be better. And then the next line down says you have to install the Teensy extension. And again, it was just, it says get it here or something. The word here was highlighted. You click on it, bang, it just downloads the thing to your computer. And at the end of it, that paragraph, it says, or you can go look at their HTML file here, and you click on that. Well, it just downloads that same file again. So it just seems like, that could have been a little more maintained a little better. And I'd look at that stuff and thinking, well, I don't quite understand what they're doing. And then I had that mismatch of stuff, because I tried, first I loaded that one that just said, here, load this one. And I think it turned out to be 1.8.15 version of Arduino, but they didn't say whether it's for ARM64 or AMD64 or anything else. So again, it is starting out with a mystery module. Later, from process of elimination, I decided it probably is the stuff that you go on laptops would be the what do you call it, AMD 64, which is x86, but it's the 64-bit stuff.
Right.
And then I went on to the next step, and I was trying to figure out the Teensy installer stuff, and I ended up getting one that didn't match. And yeah, it complicates that more, because when you download the stuff from Teensy, the name is always the same, but you try to load it and says, oh, this isn't going to work. It doesn't support that. So I first time around, I was just piecing stuff together and got up to the point where I tried to compile it. I think that's where I finally ended up with one that says, I can't find this compiler. And maybe if I just knew enough about it, I could go out and grab that compiler, or maybe, maybe do like an apt-get and say, download that compiler, or maybe I just have to change some path names or something to make it work. But, and then I moved on to the 2.3 stuff, and we just carefully went through each instruction and said, now, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And built it up to the point where, yes, it all built and loaded and was ready to go, but now it gets that undefined reference thing. And somebody says, oh, you got to recompile your pre-compiled thing that we made really handy for you. So that I didn't really see the whole point of it. You get to that point and they keep saying, how easy is it going to be? And then you try it and it doesn't work. And then it's just a nightmare trying to figure out. So at least for me, it's a nightmare trying to figure this out. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I was trying to think if I did anything else. I can't think of anything else that I did other than that. So, oh, another thing that came up, I said, because somewhere out in the middle of this, I thought, you can buy that Teensy 4.1 with an Ethernet connector. So I asked on the Home Brew Robotics list, I says, has anybody tried that? And Michael Wimble says, oh yeah, I tried that, and I got into Ethernet hell. And I'm thinking, well, that means that the thing doesn't work. But no, he was talking about his home networking. He's got multiple routers and all this kind of stuff. He couldn't get all that stuff configured correctly. But he says, yeah, in general, if you get the connector on your Teensy, and I was saying, well, I was worried about the libraries not supporting all this Ethernet stuff. And he says, well, Teensy put a chip on the board that basically does all of your Ethernet stuff. So really your processor is not doing a whole lot. It's just simply trusting that chip to do the right thing. And he seemed to think that that would give you a reasonable Ethernet on that board. So I was thinking, if you take that board with Ethernet and run an Ethernet cable to your big computer, whether it's a laptop or a Raspberry Pi, that would bypass the whole USB issue. And I don't know that anybody's really having problems with the USB. It's just that it seems like that, a big, fast, high-speed network. And also Ethernet is all twisted pair and magnetically coupled. So it may have less noise, be less noise prone also. But those are just thoughts that I had. But I decided a long time ago, I really don't want to run Ethernet on a small underpowered processor anymore, because what's the point? You can get stuff that will work, and that's just one less headache you have to worry about. So anyway, that came up, and that made note of that. So let's see. And I don't know if I mentioned on here or before we started the meeting, I also asked, is it possible to run more than one copy of Micro-ROS node on your Linux computer and then plug in multiple small boards to talk to? And Michael says, yes, that does work. And he's actually doing that. He's got his Teensy 4.1, and he started rattling off. So he's got 8 time-of-flight sensors, 4 sonars, a RoboClaw motor controller, and a relay board, and something else, all running on his Teensy 4.1. Then he said he had another processor just to do one of his, he got some new sensor and he just hooked it up to that. So I think that might have been another Teensy board. I don't know if it's a 3.2 or a 4 point something, but he said, yeah, that does indeed work. And if you dig through his GitHub, he might talk about that. He might even have like a big description somewhere of all this, because he's probably gone on the twin, or not, the Home Brew Robotics meeting, their monthly meetings. He's various times given presentations on stuff. So it could be that if you dig through that, you can find where he's talking about his stuff and find out what's on his robots and that kind of stuff. So I was trying to think of anything else here. And I guess